we'll get started in just a second. I'm going to share my screen here. But we'll get started with some quick introductions of our team. And let's see. I'll get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Mai. I'm the Director of Programs here at Hope. I oversee the implementation of all of our leadership development programs. I've been with the organization for 12 years now, focused primarily on our leadership development training programs, of which we have 4. And then in the beginning of my career here at Hope, doing some policy, since that is what my background is in. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Leah, who is the lead program manager for this program, to say hello.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So great to see many of you join us and some familiar faces. I am Leah Gonzalez. I'm the Senior Program Manager at Hope. Been with the organization for a year and a half, and always a privilege to work with such an amazing group of Latinas throughout the state of California. So I oversee the Adult Leadership Program. That means HLI, the Hope Leadership Institute, and assist with Binational, which is more of a Mexico City, DC program that we have. So very happy to be here with you and just overall address any questions and a little bit about the program that we've been having, for now 26 years.
Yes. All right. So I'll start a little bit with the background on the organization. So Hope is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We've been around for 35 years, celebrating our 35th year this December at our annual awards gala. But as an organization, what we are focused on is ensuring the political and economic parity of Latinas. And we do that through leadership development, through advocacy on behalf of Latinas, primarily focused here in the state of California, and then by a series of education events and research. So we do Latina specific research on a variety of different things, from maternal health, mental health, to the economic status of Latinas. The organization is in a really interesting place at the moment, because we are expanding. While we are housed and headquartered here in Los Angeles and in California, we are expanding nationally. So we have some programming that's happening both in New York and in Texas, and then 2 of our leadership development programs, one that Leah alluded to, the Hope Binational Fellowship, and the Hope College Leadership Program, have a larger footprint. The College Leadership Program is a national program with alumni in 26 states, and the Binational Fellowship is a fellowship program for Latinas here in the United States and in Mexico, with some lofty aspirations of hopefully getting some fellows throughout the entire Western Hemisphere. And so that's kind of what we do on the leadership bucket. Most 4 of the 5 leadership programs that we have here are run by me and my team. We do have a new institute that we are launching actually later this week, and it's called the Regional Institute. And that really is looking at leadership, at developing Latinas leadership and advocacy skills at a more regional level. We're launching that initiative this year with a group in Los Angeles and a group in San Diego, but the idea is that there'd be small regional training programs throughout the state of California. So at the same time that we're growing nationally, we're also making sure that we are strengthening our roots here in California, since this is our home base. As part of our education work, we have a series of events that we do, the largest of which is Latina History Day. I'm not sure how many of you have participated in that, but it is a 1-day both professional development and celebratory conference. We do some leadership development for Latinas, some workshops for career advancement focused, really. But we also, it's a time for Latinas in California and throughout the country, really, because we do get some folks from other places to celebrate the accomplishments and contributions that Latinas have made to our state and to our country. That Latina History Day conference. The national conference is here in LA, but we have a smaller version of it. It's more of a luncheon that we do in New York City. We also have Latina Action Day, which is a advocacy conference. Sorry if I'm looking this way. This is where my next second monitor is. And that is a policy conference in Sacramento. We bring Latinas together from across the state to do some advocacy work around Hope's policy platform. We also have Latina Empowerment Days, which are 1 day, or technically half-day training days throughout the state of California that is led by our community engagement team. And I like to think of those as like their own mini like Hope tour, because literally that team of four rents a minivan and makes their way throughout the state of California training Latinas, which is a really cool concept. As I mentioned, we have an awards dinner coming up in December. We just did our Young Professional Summit, which is a 1 day conference for college students and recent graduates. That is career focused. It's really about helping them facilitate their integration into the workforce. And then we have some online programming that Leah actually helps lead for the organization. And then we also do research and advocacy work. So we have a policy director in Sacramento, and then we also release in partnership with different think tanks and researchers, we release different reports. These are just some that came out over the last couple of years, but we've done work on, the economic status of Latinas. We also track appointments in state and Latina representation in state government. And then we also, and so you can see that here with the gubernatorial appointments and then the status of Latina electeds report that's really focused on California, but we also did something similar for the state of New York and working on something. We're working on an economic status of Latinas report national in 2025. Any questions right now about Hope itself before I kind of jump into the Hope Leadership Institute? Yeah, okay, I'm seeing no takers. Okay, so the rest of the conversation is really going to be talking about giving you a overview of the Hope Leadership Institute. We'll leave some space in the end to talk a little bit about the application process. Leah, I'll cover some of the objectives and the about, and then if you want to cover the rest, I'll leave that up to you. All right, so the Hope Leadership Institute is the first and signature program of the organization. It was launched in 1999, and it is the only leadership development program for Latinas that is designed by Latinas for Latinas. It is modeled after a few different leadership training programs, Coro being one of them. So you'll see some stuff that is Coro-like as part of this program. But the idea behind the Hope Leadership Institute is creating a space for Latinas where they feel safe and vulnerable to grow as leaders in their communities. And obviously everything that we do, while there is a focus on advocacy and community impact, there is a portion of the program and the skills development that is transferable to any sector. So you'll see that among the cohorts, there is a nice balance between people who are in the private sector and corporations and people who are in the public sector or nonprofit sector. It is a cohort based program. It spans 9 months from January through September usually. We have a network of 750 Latinas in the state of California. Or I should say from California. So not everybody stays in California. Some of them go to DC or move to other states, but 750 women have gone through this program. And the program consists of 5 training sessions, which Leah will go into in a little bit. But those training sessions focused on kind of political and economic power building, which is at the core of what we're trying to do here is build Latina power, and provide our trainees or our participants with the skill set so that they can make impact in their communities. There is, the training sessions kind of function a little bit as seminars. We bring in some subject matter experts to talk about different to talk about or train on different issues. There will be some case study work. There will also be a capstone project attached to this. So I don't want to sugarcoat the investment in time that this will require. Um, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Leah will talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides. But I first wanted to cover what the program objectives are, which is to make sure that the participants understand and engage in the dynamics of local, state, and national and the national political process. So it's just demystifying the political and policy process, acquire individual and group competencies to become active and effective advocates on issues impacting Latinas. So we're going to be talking about, and you'll hear this a lot, we talk a lot about the Latina lens and looking at issues from the lens of Latinas and the communities that they come from. And then also obviously analyze and implement strategies to affect the development of sound public policy. So there will be through the capstone project, participants do get to have a direct impact in public policy. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leah.
Thank you, Diana. So as Diana mentioned, the program is a 9-month program, starting from January typically to the month of September. Obviously, things drastically could happen, like when we had COVID and things had to be shifted around. But however, hoping that nothing happens and everything goes as planned, we have set aside already the dates for our next year. So the first session it's the political process. It takes place in Sacramento, and it's obviously an introduction to the program, but overall an introduction to what the political process is. The beauty of our program is that, we have people, as Diana mentioned, from different sectors. We have folks who have lots of experience in policy, and then we have folks who have no idea what policy is. So there'll be a lot of there'll be a lot of that conversation and those experts in the room. Then we have our third session, which takes place here in the city of LA. Sorry, I'm saying here like we're all here in LA, here in Los Angeles. And it's from March 6th to the 8th. And that's intertwined with our Latina History Day. Then we have our third session, state policy process back in Sacramento, which is also intertwined with our Latina Action Day. And then we go into Kern County and get a little touch of the Central Valley in Bakersfield for our fourth session, which is we focus on regional issues, economy, and leadership legacy. And at last, we wrap up the program looking at federal policy process and national advocacy, and that's in DC, and is also where the graduation takes place. So it seems like it's short, but it's actually very robust. There's a lot of, we'll get into the weeds of, the reading material and the capstone project, as Diana just talked about. But those 9 months fly by. So some qualifications. I know some of the folks here in today's info session have already even submitted the application or have already started, but must reside in California. Be recognized a community leader with at least 5 years of leadership experience. And that can be serving on a nonprofit board, government commission, or just, being involved in your own community. Be a mid or high level professional ready for the next step in your career and leadership role in your community. And that means if you want to run for office or even be on a board or be an appointee, the list goes on, and that's whatever your leadership role might be. As mentioned, what's expected, usually we get a cohort of 30 participants throughout the state of California. We have 7 regions that we focus, Greater LA, San Diego, just the most metropolitan areas of the state of California. That doesn't mean that if you live in Lake Tahoe, you won't be, in the program. I'm just saying we just focus the outreach in this bigger areas. It's about roughly 150 hours of instruction time in session, and those 5 sessions that we're going to have in 9 months. Spend approximately 20 hours working on group capstone project. Again, it's a group project, but we are expected for you to do your work. About 5 hours before session to do, as mentioned, reading material or just prep for any assignments for the upcoming session. And then you have access to industry expert and thought leaders. And then, of course, the access to our Hope Network, over 1,000 Latina leaders. The commitment that we ask for each one of the participants, for them to attend all 5 program sessions. We understand live happens. However, that's when we expect for communication between Diana and myself, if something drastic were to happen and can attend. Complete individual and group projects outside of session. Once again, there's a capstone project that we required for you to participate in. So we expect full participation. Expected to advocate on behalf of Latinas. You're gonna get, you will do a lot of that on your own for your capstone project, but also during Latina Action Day. And then dedicate to Hope's mission and contribute to the Friends of Hope Donor Network. Before we move on to anything else, any questions from our sessions to our commitment, the requirements? I think I saw something on the chat. No?
Can you speak more to the last bullet point of contributing to the donor network? Is there a minimum commitment required after we graduate, or how would that work?
Yeah, so there is a Friends of Hope, it's a $540 commitment that you have to contribute to the network. It usually, what happens is that you pledge in the beginning of the year, either you pay fully or you do monthly payments before you graduate to fulfill those 140. It can come from you, it can come from, we had some participants that their company or their bosses is like, we'll take care of it, or part of it, as long as you contribute to the Friends of Hope donor network. And Diana, feel free to chime in if you want to add anything else. I think you're muted right now.
Thanks. Thanks, Leah. Yeah, so it's we do have a individual giving program, and many alumni do give after participating in the program on a yearly basis. But the requirement that we're referencing here is exactly what Leah is commenting on. While it's a tuition-free program because it cost us a little over $15,000 to take one individual through the program. Obviously, we're not charging folks that, but there is an expectation that you either give or get $540 dollars. But if you're gonna get, for example, I know she mentioned some folks get their employers to cover it, and that's part of the get. There's still an expectation that you are making an individual contribution. So, for example, many women who get their employers to pay for this will get their employer to pay for 140, and they give 100 of their own money. It is our way of instituting into our program alumni this idea of paying it forward. But this covers all of the costs if you want to go into that, Leah.
Oh yeah, definitely. So HLI is tuition free, as Diana just mentioned. However, participants do incur some out-of-pocket expenses, such as registration. We already know there's the application fee, education materials. There might be some trainings or books that we ask you to buy, travel to and from session, and lodging for most sessions. So again, you will be responsible for getting yourself, example, if we have our session in Sacramento and you're based in LA or vice versa, to find your travel accommodations there. We do cover lodging for participants that choose to share rooms. If you prefer to have individual accommodations, you must cover your own expense. That means that if Hope is covering, you will have a roommate. And we assign those roommates.
Yeah, sorry, let me backtrack because I think that's there was an error in the editing process here. Hope covers the lodging for most of the sessions. There's only one session we do not cover lodging for, which is the session in Bakersfield, because it is fairly inexpensive. And we cover the lodging for the other sessions if you choose to share, right? So if you're agreeing to Hope's terms of us covering the lodging, that comes with specific stipulations, which is that our team selects who you're rooming with and that you're rooming with an additional person. That there is a method to that madness, and it is a process. It is a part of the process of fellowship building, to share space with each other. If you're like, I don't want to, my employer is going to cover my accommodations, then we will do our best to make sure that we account for a room for you in our room block. But you will be responsible for paying for that out of your own money, or figuring out the arrangements with your employer. Sorry, I wanted to clarify that because there is a typo here. Go
Yes.
ahead, Leah.
Thank you. And Dana just mentioned that the third bullet, Hope does not cover the lodging for our fourth session in Bakersfield. And again, I already mentioned the participating to pledge with the Beacon of Hope level of donation of 540, and approximately there's an out-of-pocket expense of 2,000 to 6,000. That's again depending on if you want to share a room or not. If you're a bargain traveler like I am and always looking for flight deals and get, lucky to fly for $50, it is what it is, right? So that's just depends on your own.
All right, any questions about the program before we continue on to talk about the application?
I'm sorry, I arrived late, and so I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you guys talked about the qualifications on. I had read that it was a 5-year, you had to have 5 years of leadership experience.
Correct.
What like what does that mean? What kind of leadership?
So,
Yeah.
so it could be anything from serving on a nonprofit board, community, anything you're doing in your community as far as community work, or be in a leadership position at your job. So it's intended for mid-career, mid to high career level professionals. So we don't gauge that based on age, we gauge it based on experience. And so 5 years into leadership experience means you've been a director at your company for 5 years, or you've served on a nonprofit board for 5 years, you're serving on a local commission for 5 years. So that's kind of what we mean by that.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move forward?
It looks like there's one in the chat. It says, could
Oh.
5 years of leadership experience be from multiple roles within those 5 years?
Yes, yeah, it's cumulative. All right.
All right. So the application deadline is coming up. It's on November 1st. Make sure that you submit it by 11:59 p.m.
Yes, there might be a caveat that we might extend for certain regions. And we'll go into the evaluation of the application process. But for the most part, if you were applying in Los Angeles, November 1st is the deadline. Leah, go ahead.
So when the application is submitted, it is a very highly competitive programs. It ranges from the amount of depending on the regions. We get different number of applicants every year. The review process is conducted in 3 phases. So we obviously make sure that we do the initial vetting, make sure the applications are completed, everything's there that we've been asked and required in your application. And then we have a regional committee that reviews and scores each of the applications. The final class is selected by our organization leadership based on the recommendations of the review committee, and then just the initial vetting. We will make the selection by early December, and then notifications will be done by mid-December. So that gives us, I know there's holidays right in between, but we want to make sure that everybody has their acceptance letter right before the holidays, then December holidays.
Okay. All right, just answered, we're back to Q&A. What's not on here, and I'll just add, is a couple of quick tips. You do want to make sure you get a letter of recommendation in. If you know anyone already existing in the network, that would be the best person to get a letter of recommendation from, because they'd be able to speak to how you would fit in to the program, what you would specifically be able to get out of it, since they've had the experience of having gone through the program already. there was a question in the chat about whether if there's a conflict with the dates already. Then my response would be that this isn't the year for you to apply. This, as Leah mentioned, is a highly competitive program, and if we're offering you a slot, it's with the expectation that you're going to be at every session for the entire duration of the session. Otherwise, there's other folks that are waiting in line to participate. The dates stay pretty much the same, so you can assess that the following year they'll be around the same time. And then that would be an opportunity for you to apply. And yes, Sophia, we will send the recording to everybody who registered. Any other questions?
Can you speak more to the capstone project and what are some examples maybe? Some examples of projects that have been done by past participants. Thank you.
Yeah, so the capstone project we share in February, and it is paced so that you complete throughout the 8 months, from February to September. It'll have some key milestones that you should hit, and some of the issue areas. We give you a guide, give you some issue areas that you should focus on. It's really heavy on the analysis of policy in a particular issue, so it's research heavy. And for example, what we've done, I'm trying to think of what we've done this year. We had one group in the Inland Empire, and I'm sharing this one because it's continuing. We had one group in the Inland Empire that's focused on dual enrollment. Their analysis focused on dual enrollment in the Inland Empire, who's benefiting, who's not, the resources that are being allocated by the school districts that they looked at. And that group had some educators already in it, so they knew the issue very well. The capstone required them to analyze the issue, to put together policy briefs, and educate their elected leaders. And so they're meant to look at elected leaders at the local level, so they focused on school board. They're also asked to brief and educate statewide elected officials, so the state senators, state assembly members, and then they also met with their members of Congress to brief them on the research that they had done, and then their proposal of policy solutions. For some groups, the policy solutions look like regulation, or they look like oversight. For others, it looks like the development of new programs or funding. And then at the end, they're meant to put together an op-ed of the analysis that they've done, and they shop the op-eds around. Every group has the opportunity to tweak the capstone to fit like their specific region. They're group-based, so it's not individual. I should mention that. And each group the focus is supposed to be regional. So in your region, you're supposed to decide what is the best course forward for the issue we've tasked you with. And so there'll be, like there could be a group in LA that's doing maternal health, for example. That's going to be one of the topics for next year. The maternal health policy solutions of the LA group can look drastically different from the maternal health policy solutions for the group in Fresno, for example, because those communities are very different. The needs of the communities are very different, and the infrastructure of the communities are very different. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of more so what the gist of the capstone project is.
So since you mentioned maternal health, everybody will do a project with that topic, with the issue area, or that's just an example?
That's just an example. No, everyone does not do the same topic. We'll usually have 4 topics, and we usually have between 8 to 9 groups, depending on the size of the cohort. And so there'll be 2 groups that are working on a similar issue. And the issues for next year, we're still defining. I just know that maternal health is going to be one of the issues. But there'll be 2 groups working on a similar issue, but they're in different regions. So there won't be, usually usually the 8th or 10th group is from LA because our LA base or LA, the women that are coming out of LA is more of them. So we'll split that LA cohort into 2 groups. And one group will be focusing on maternal health, for example, and the other one will be working on like the math framework, for example. So it's 2 different issues in that region.
Thank you.
There's a question here about the letters. I mentioned highly recommend that you get letters of references. And if you know someone already in the network or who is an alum of the program, that is who you ideally would be getting a letter of reference from.
Hi everyone, this is Karen Molina. I have a quick question.
Sure.
So for the letters of references, those are mandatory, correct? As part of the application?
Let me look at the exact wording. Give me 1 second.
Okay. And if they, let's assume they are mandatory, does it hurt your application if one of your letters of recommendation is not from a graduate of the program?
It won't hurt your application. If one of them is not,
Okay.
I would recommend that at least one of your letters be from an alum.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, let me look at the exact language because I don't remember. My guess is that it is. Okay, so we asked for a referral. So we asked for 2 referrals, and that just means listing people that you know that have participated in the program. And then what is encouraged but not necessarily required is 2 letters of recommendation. I will tell you, not having letters of recommendation does hurt your application process.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the referrals are different from the letters of recommendation.
Yes, usually. Then they don't have to be the same people.
Okay, and the referrals you said have to be of people you know in the program?
They don't have to be, but we highly recommend that at least
Okay.
one of them is.
Okay,
Either
thank
in
you.
this program or another program or somebody that is involved with Hope.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have a
And
question as well.
Yeah, go for it.
For the letter of recommendations, I already got them and they're 2 former alumni. However, they spoke more towards my skills and what I've done in the community. I was wondering, going back to my original question, should it reflect more of why I would be fit in the program?
No, if you have the letters, that's fine. I will call them.
Okay, thank you.
The letters of recommendation are uploaded to the application. So there'll be a section in there that you can upload the letters to. What will happen is, because it happens every year, some alumni will just shoot us an email and saying, I don't have time to write the letter, but I'm recommending so-and-so. What we do internally is take that email and upload it to attach it to your application. So it'll count as an informal letter of recommendation. And we just do that as a courtesy.
But out of curiosity, if an alumni sends an email like that, does it have higher weight than a general letter of rec? Even though it's kind of more informal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not. It's just looked at like it's the same. It is not better than an actual formal letter than someone took time to write. It's just noted on your application that someone is recommending you.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So an email like that, for example, is not shared with the review committee. It is only seen by staff. The review committee will only see a note that says so-and-so contacted us about this person, but they won't see the email. They only review the formal letters. Which actually, did you cover the review process, Leah?
I did.
Okay. All right, any questions? Any other questions about the application process? We apologize that I know it's really long. What I will recommend is that you spend enough time in the short answer. One of the things we do see is in the short response section that not a lot of people, or not, I shouldn't say that. There are some people who don't spend a lot of time answering those questions. And that's really the bulk of what the regional review committees look at. And so if there's a lot of grammar errors or they can sense that not a lot of effort was made, they usually tend to take that as a indication that you don't have the time or the discipline to participate in the program. Anna, sorry, is that a new hand raise or is that an old one?
Yes, it's a new question.
Okay.
So I noticed that on the addendum part, there's no word limit specification, and I just wanted to make sure if there was one.
A word limit?
Yes.
No, that's just space for you to, I mean, don't give us like, a Don Quixote length essay. It's just more space for you to explain your application if you feel like there's anything that needs further explanation.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. So I'm guessing if we did not make it into the cohort, we will be notified, correct?
Correct.
And if we do not make it, do we have the capability to kind of reach out to you, Diana, or someone else to say, hey, can you provide me feedback so I can, work on myself and maybe potentially apply in the future?
Yes.
Okay.
We send out decline notices first before we send out acceptance letters.
Okay.
Just to give people, we don't want to blindside anyone by just doing an announcement if this is who's in the class. That said, the letter will include opportunities for you to continue engaging with the organization.
Mhm.
And then an invitation for you to set up some time to connect with me or with Leah about how you can strengthen your application for the
Oh,
following.
perfect. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that'll be really helpful for, myself or anyone doesn't make it to see where there are gaps that we can improve upon.
Yes. Any further questions?
Hi, I had another question going back to the referrals and letters of support. Just want to clarify, is it okay if if the same alum is a referral and provides a letter of support? Okay.
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any further questions? Or any final tips, Leah, that you have? I'm trying to think back to the review process.
No, I think just emphasizing about the short answers. I think that's something that's very critical just for us, even in the organization. And
Yeah.
just overall.
Yeah,
that's-
I will say about the short answers. When we weed people out, it would be because they didn't complete that well, or we do an initial vetting of applications, and if that is subpar, we're not going to waste the review committee's time reviewing an application that's just not going to make the final cut.
And I have a question. Hello, good evening.
Oh.
Say for example, if we're looking at this opportunity and it might not be the year to apply, since we're interested in this now for the future year, would there be besides the newsletter, like another way to find out other ways to be involved during the year to then lead up to that following year?
Yeah. We have, as I mentioned, that we list some of the events that we do there. that we do throughout the state on the PowerPoint, which we're happy to send over. But I think attending some of our events, making sure that and if you attend those events, making sure Leah knows that you're there, that I know that you're there, that like our leadership team knows you're there will go a long way, because it'll start familiarizing the team and the organization with you, so that when you do apply, we can say, oh, I remember Jessica, she attended the info session last year, she went to this event, she went to that event, and we do note that in people's applications.
Thank you so much.
Great question, Jessica. That was similar to mine. Do you recommend also looking into joining the collaborative just to get more information? I'm new to California and in the San Diego area, so I was just wondering if how do you see that connected to some of the to potentially join being approved for the cohort?
The Latina Appointments Collaborative? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, so
Yes.
the Latina Appointments Collaborative is a online kind of like resource tool to get Latinas both in our network and out of it to seek local or statewide appointments. And so it's a great tool for that. It's also a great tool for our team to kind of get to know you. There are some instances where the program, or I don't think her name's program manager, the manager who facilitates that program will coach people through the process of seeking appointments. And so, yeah, that's an absolutely good way of engaging with the organization.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so I'm gonna pause the recording here. We'll stick around till there's no one here to see if you all have individual questions. We are happy to take them. And then this recording will go out to everybody who registered as well. Leah, any final words before I pause the recording?
No final words. Just, Diana and I are here as a resource. If you have any further questions about the application process, I mean, we're going to be here for the next 10 minutes or so, but if anything pops up as you're doing your application online, feel free to just send us an email or call us.
Thank you so much.